Hello, folks. Hope everyone is doing well out there. Know it's been warm all over the place and wet in other places. Lots of challenges these days through the weather, social interactions, all kinds of ways. But we say thank you for the fact that we're here and we're in the ball game and hopefully continuing to learn and to grow. So today I'd like to talk a little bit about submission or surrender. And if you look in the dictionary, it'll probably say something like yielding to superior forces or authority. It almost feels like it's a negative thing to submit. It's as if you're giving up your power and allowing another energy, person, or authority to direct you to determine your behavior. I want to look at it a little different way. I want to look at submission as a process of being in harmony with, alignment with a larger entity. Think of it this way. As human beings, we are a part of nature. Now, I know many people say we're at the top of the food chain, and we may be, but we're still a part of the chain. And as such, we do better when we move in harmony with nature, life, the universe, when we're aligned with it rather than moving against it. One of the things that happens in contemporary lifestyles is we can begin to focus so much on ourselves that we begin to believe it's all about us. And what we think, what we believe, what we want to do is what needs to happen. And that can get us in trouble. That can get us in trouble. Because again, if you look at it holistically, we are a part of a larger system, a larger ecosystem that includes nature, that includes metaphysical, that includes the spiritual, that includes the universe. And we do better when we move in harmony with those energies. So what do I mean by that? Well, what I'm saying is life is talking to each one of us all the time. It's continually sending us messages to affirm our beliefs, to encourage us, but also to challenge us and to get us to look at things in different ways. We live in a time when we're influenced by so many factors. Things are coming at us all the time, trying to program how we think, what we feel, what we believe, and what we do according to the values and agendas of those other sources. So we get all of these influences telling us who we are, what we need to be doing, what makes us look good, what makes us look intelligent, what we need to be presentable, to be acceptable in life. Selling us these concepts continually. And in the process, feeding our desires. And when you feed desires enough, they become addictions. But I'll come back to that in a moment. What I'm saying is that life is talking to each one of us all the time. How many of us have done something and said, I wish I had done something different, or I could have thought about that different, because we're always feeling something intuitively, if not emotionally, if not cognitively, to give us some direction. But again, we so often make decisions based on what is attractive to us, what is stimulating, because most of us are overstimulated. And whatever can give us a little buzz, a little shot of adrenaline right now gets real attractive, whether it's a fashion, whether it's a behavior, whether it's a verbal statement or conversation or an attitude. We tend to do those things that give us some immediate feedback. And that may be different than what life is presenting us, because life usually presents things that are more long-term as opposed to immediate, and that require some internal focus in order for us to understand, let alone accept. So let's take this out of the abstract. What do I mean? So it may be as simple as you're trying to figure out what to wear. Now, I can assure you there are folks around right now, all over the planet, who are coming up with fashions and trying to determine what you and I are going to wear and buy next year. We're going to try to shape the fashions, influence our minds, stimulate us in a way that we go after things the way that they have in mind. At the same time, there may be another voice inside that says, slow down. You have enough of that. Or put your energy somewhere else, or share more of what you have, or create more of your own, or do something that's more modest, that's less, gets less attention. It might be any message, and the messages that come are usually not for everybody all the time, but they're usually individualized. But each one of us, when we are still, we get some direction. We get some assistance in making those decisions. And again, when we listen to universe, life, nature, God, whatever you want to call it, it directs us in a way that helps us to develop capacity to be self-disciplined and focus toward our larger well-being. And when I say our larger well-being, I'm not just talking about individually, but collectively. I mean, again, it can be as simple as what to eat. Now, I can eat what commercials say that I should eat, and the fast food and this and that and the other, with a lot of, excuse my language, chemicals in them, and a lot of food colorings and all of those things. I can eat a lot of those, and that will satisfy me immediately. But long term, it's going to create problems. And something is going to tell me, if I'm open to it, something's going to say to me, maybe you ought to cut down on that, or maybe try more fruit, or drink more water, like that. And the way it works, the more one listens to that still small voice within, the louder it gets, and the more frequently you hear from it. Because it's there all the time. We're just being distracted by our contemporary lifestyles that are full of commercials, stimulations, agendas of the corporate capitalistic world. So when we learn to be still, to put some brakes on ourselves, and that's what it requires, Because in order to really tune in to those quiet, still messages, we have to be more self-disciplined. And that starts with some courage and some faith. The courage to say no to oneself. The courage to say yes to oneself. The courage to make a decision based on your perception of what is best for your well-being in the moment, as opposed to submitting to the constant barrage of stimulations, advertisements, and provocations that come at all of us. Because what it boils down to, if we are not consciously and deliberately making decisions about our lifestyles, then you can believe that we are submitting to the lifestyles, the agenda of other entities that may be more, how should I say, capitalistically stimulated, that may be more concerned about their power and wealth than our well-being, like that. So it takes a little bit of work, and we have to shift an attitude from the attitude of I'm in charge and what I want is so important and I gotta have whatever I want, to an attitude more of submission, where I realize that I am not in charge of anything but me. And the best way to stay in charge with me is to develop some self-discipline around those desires, those wants that are all the time coming at me. There's a difference between wants and needs. Wants make me feel good right now. Needs are things that I have to have in order to live well, in order to take care of myself, in order to maximize my potential. But it's real important that we learn to separate wants from needs. When we feed wants, what happens? They become addictions, So today I'm just doing what I want, but I become addicted to shopping. I become addicted to eating a certain way. I become addicted to stimulating myself with drugs or alcohol, or even talking too much or whatever, as opposed to learning how to put brakes on myself and try to submit to a larger order and live in alignment with life. Life requires something. This is a school. This is a school. This is life that we live. And when we learn the lessons, we do better. When we ignore the lessons, they pile up and they cost us more and more. They cost us because the messages don't go away. They become more dramatic. They become more challenging. They become more confrontative when we don't pay attention to them. What's that old saying? You can change horses, but you can't get out the race. You say you can change relationships, change cities, change jobs, but you're still taking you with you and your same patterns of dealing with wants versus needs until and unless you decide to be more deliberate and really attend to one's larger needs. And it's a science to it. It's a science to it because you can't shift everything at one time, but every little bit counts. So you may start with, say, I'm going to drink an extra glass of water a day, or I'm going to only buy 3 pair of sneakers, But wherever you say no to yourself or yes to yourself in a deliberate way, you increase your willpower and your ability to be consistent with your highest values, because all those other things are playing on our so-called weaknesses. But when you decide how you want to be, who you are, what's important to you, when you take some time, be still, and begin to evaluate that, then you can make more informed decisions about what's consistent with that. What's consistent with that? Or do I continue to keep my eyes closed and pretend that I'm just doing what I want to do without facing the reality that I'm dancing to the tune of some others who may or may not have my best intentions at heart?
You mind if I jump in for a moment?
Please do.
Because Doc, everything that you have said so far is like really on my street. And I'm glad that you got to the point where you started talking about stillness. That immediately struck a chord with me because that's where I find myself right now. And, just to give a bit of background, I'm a person who deals with anxiety, and it's been that way for, most of my adult life. And so recently, and another thing I'll say is that one thing that I have been challenged with is finding a morning ritual that really works for me. Those things tend to not last very long before I, stop doing it and fall off. So I've been trying to find my way for some time now. So for the past few weeks, being that it's summertime, my kids aren't in school, so I don't have to rush out and take them to the bus stop or whatever. I have taken time almost every morning, and first thing in the morning, I'm out on my porch just sitting down, right? And this is like 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock at the latest in the morning. I walk outside and I sit down and it's so quiet, right? I can hear nothing but birds chirping. My neighbors haven't come out yet. So it's very quiet and very peaceful, very still. And so I take that time to read. My mother was kind enough to give me this daily devotional. So I'll read a page from that. And then you let me borrow a book, and I read a couple pages from that. The book is a little dense, so it's like, oh my gosh, like I can't read a whole chapter of this at one time. It's a lot of information. But I guess the point is that has allowed me time to slow down. And I guess that's the point that I'm getting to, is that we live in such a rat race, or a series of rat races, that in order to create space to submit and to really, be able to hear the messages from God, we have to allow ourselves time to slow down. And that's a very difficult thing to do. It's a practice. You have to practice, that stillness and slowing down, because it's always something. You're always caught up in something. And what I was telling a friend of mine is that I looked up one day recently, this was last week, I think, and I was actually sitting in the house, and behind you have the that water fountain. And so I had that water fountain running, and it was very quiet, and all I could hear was the water, and it was so peaceful and silent. And so I sat in that, and I realized that, wow, I'm fully present right now. And that's very unique for me, because being someone that deals with anxiety, I'm always thinking about, or usually thinking about, something in the future or ruminating on something from the past. But being present is very different for me, so when I was sitting, I'm like, wow, I don't feel anything right now. And that's good. Like, I'm just here in this present moment. And that allowed me to, to receive some messages from the universe, and to have a level of clarity that started to allow me to make better decisions in terms of, relationships at the moment, or things that I wanted to do in business. It was just very still, and things started to come to me that started to connect and make a whole lot of sense. But I guess the point is, it really did start with that practice of stillness, and me finding a morning ritual that really was working for me, that allowed me that peace, to really hear those messages. And so I've been in that space for the past couple of weeks, and just really receiving that, and really, sitting in that. And it's been really effective, so I'm not in a space of trying to constantly force things. You have all these distractions. You have business, you have people in relationships that you have, friendships, business relationships, you have social media, and you're always constantly trying to keep up to some extent. But it's like I've started to be able to pull myself back from that. It's like, no, I don't have to keep up with that. I can really receive those messages and really move with where I feel myself being led, instead of, to your point that you just made, instead of me constantly trying to be in control and make all these forced decisions. It's like, let me breathe for a second.
There you go.
And see where I'm being guided instead of me feeling like I'm, doing the guiding.
So let me go back to the beginning. Anxiety. So what we call anxiety is usually based in a person's sensitivity.
Yes.
That means you're just very much aware of what's happening around you and things that affect you in different ways. The only issue is how you focus. Again, when you focus in the present moment with acceptance and openness, that'll bring you some peace, that'll bring you some clarity. But if you allow that anxiety to have you to feed your fear of what would or could or should happen, that takes you someplace else. So anxiety is really indicative of a gift, as far as I'm concerned. It's just a matter of how you use it. Then the other piece that struck me, probably the most productive time we have during the day is before sunrise in the morning, because things are quieter. I mean, myself, just straight up, I've never been a morning person, but I get up, for meditation, and I may go back to bed after, at sunrise. But just allowing oneself to be aware and present in that quietness, things are more direct. There's less distractions. There's less challenges when we're there. I mean, personally, I find it easier to write that time in the morning before sunrise, because I can go deeper inside. As you say, I can receive those messages from the universe in a clear way at that point. So the other point is that part of life has to do with continually assessing and reassessing where we are. Anytime you think, I got it, and this is the way it is, and you're probably setting yourself up. Because life requires that we continually reassess and make adjustments. So if I am receiving, if I'm being aware and receiving influence, guidance, clarity, then I may experiment with a new morning ritual. I may experiment with a new diet. I may experiment with limiting certain vocabulary or adding certain things to my vocabulary, new behaviors, and get my own feedback. And that helps me to understand what the universe is giving me for next. As one of our mentors would say, be your own scientist. Not just what you read in the books or you hear in the media. Be your own scientist, but do some experiments to see what works for you. Don't just accept the lifestyle that's been dictated by popular media and the capitalist society, but go inside to try to make some determination of what is best for you right now. And if you really want to mess with the process, you can ask the universe. You say, ask for some guidance on this. Give me, thank you for some guidance around or whatever guidance you have. And you say, ask and it shall be given you. Then you just got to stay open. It will come. Sometimes clearly, sometimes not so clearly, but it's the law of the universe. If you ask, you have to be given some kind of response.
Right.
So it's when we get in the game with some awareness, some intention, some openness, it's a fascinating game.
And you know what else I realized? This is what I wanted to get to as well. I've been thinking a lot about authenticity, right? And connecting with our authentic selves. And what I realized, and I put a post on one of the social media platforms earlier today about this, is that very few of us are as authentic as we would like to be. And the reason for that is because our true authentic self is typically covered by so many layers that we're not really connecting to it. So whether it's layers of our experiences, our traumas, the compromises that we make in life in order to get ahead or whatever it is that we want to do, we're not as much of our unique, authentic selves as we would like to think we are. And what that stillness allows you to do is to really connect, because you're kind of clearing a path, and that's one thing that I have really made an attempt to, or made attempts to do over the past however long, is really figure out, who am I?
Yes.
What is it that I really want to do in certain scenarios? How do I want to show up? That sort of thing. But you have to clear out all of that stuff. You have to clear that path to yourself.
You say, so why did the universe make me good at this and challenged by this and not so good at this? Why did the universe make me this way?
Right.
Because you are uniquely you, and you have a purpose consistent with what the universe has given you. But again, you have to be still to really receive that guidance as to who you are and what you need to be doing.
Right. Instead of, focusing on either trying to please others or just trying to keep up, so to speak.
Yes.
You lose yourself.
Yeah. You have to accept that you are a child of the universe. First of all, that you are worthy, and that the universe is looking out for you. Even in the things that happen that are unpleasant, there are lessons in there and even blessings in them that the universe is working to take care of you always. But you got to get still. You got to process those, walk through those emotions. And the emotions, we do a lot of running away from the emotions. And sometimes the stuff hurts. Sometimes it's scary. Sometimes it's intimidating. But when we can unpack it, walk through it, receive it in an accepting way, it has some kind of blessing for us. If no more than to clarify what our strengths are, our resiliencies, and how we can move forward. Life is always trying to teach us something. It's benevolent, it's consistent, and it is thorough. We just have to be present in it. And like you say, get rid of the distractions, be still and know. Be still and receive. Be still and accept what is given. And have the courage to move on it then. Maybe you won't do it all in a day, but have the courage to move on it.
So what would you say are, I guess, for lack of better words, some tips for knowing that you're properly aligned? Because a lot of people, I think they may struggle with feeling like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I on the right path? Am I, following, that universal guidance, or is it me that's making these decisions? Like, how do you separate the two? How can you tell the difference?
That's a good question. Again, we may have something happen and it may give us a lot of satisfaction. I won. So much of it in society is about competitiveness, and I'm better than that, and da. But we always had those questions deep down inside about our competence, our worthiness. So that requires really being still and doing assessment from the inside out. what does this mean? Who am I really? What's the lesson in this? When you can find out the meanings and the lessons, it will give you directions. But you have to assess, not just party. I won this and this is good and I'm making more money, and you say, okay, how does this fit into the larger picture? How did I get here? What's next for me? How do I maintain all those kind of things? So you have to be willing to unpack and ask yourself the uncomfortable questions, to go into the discomfort. If you stay in a place that's comfortable to you, you are not going to be being authentic with yourself, and you're not going to be moving toward alignment. At some level, growth requires that we move through periods of discomfort, moving from what we're comfortable, familiar with, to that which is new and different. Many times, addiction is fed by our addiction to familiarity and comfort, because to go outside of that means I am challenged in a different way. So it's an ongoing process of assessment, and
Right.
and one way you can assess, certainly, if you have someone close to you that you have some respect for, and feels vice versa, you can have some conversation with them, to get some feedback from them. You can, again, you can just ask for guidance from the universe, and something will come to let you know. I remember a few days ago, I don't remember exactly what was happening. I was going through, I was working online with some things and trying to correct something on my computer. And you're a technician. I'm not. I'm from a family of technicians, but I'm not a technician. And normally I would have gotten frustrated, but I took a deep breath. I maybe said a mantra, looked at a picture of a deity, and let it go. Say, it is what it. I made my effort, and this thing is still doing what it needs to do. I just settled myself and was still. Okay. Well, the next thing I know, it shifted. It shifted. It went from a problem to it was corrected. And when things happen that close together, I saw what was happening on a computer responding to what was happening inside of me.
Mm.
Yes, because everything is connected. Everything is interconnected.
Right.
So if something happens externally, it is usually in response to what is happening to us internally. If I had gotten upset and frustrated with what was going on, what I couldn't get to happen at that time, I would have fed that cycle. But because I didn't do what I normally did, I backed up, took a breath, and went inside. Next thing I know, what was the external part shifted too. We feed the external by what we do internally. So when we get still, go inside, go deeper, check in with our motivations, what's in our heart, with the realness that we are a part of, then we help that external part to manifest the same thing. But if I'm out there in my anxiety and I'm just worried about this and worried about that and frustrated about that, I am feeding that. I am helping that to happen.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. You know what? I have a similar story, and it goes back to what I was saying to you. I think it was off mic, but when I was talking about how I was working on my car.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, historically, those things have been tough for me, things like, car maintenance and things like that. It's not, something that I grew up doing. It's something that I've tried to start learning more as an adult. And so I decided, you know what? I need some new brake pads, I need some new brakes. So I'm going to give a shot, take a shot at doing this myself. Right now, one of the things that plagues me, or that has plagued me over time, is feeling like I'm not good at something. Right. So I'm quick to get frustrated when something isn't working out. But the way that I approached this was in a very open way, that I'm going to give this a shot. Yes. I'm going to see where this goes. I'm going to take my time because I'm not on anybody else's timetable, but, my own, so let's see what happens. And so, like I was telling you, the first day I was having trouble getting my tires off because the shop that previously handled my tires put them on too tight. And that happens sometimes because they use the machinery to do it. And I'm trying to do it by hand. So using all the strength that I had in me to try to get these lug nuts off. Normally, like I said, that would get me frustrated. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to get frustrated. This is just not working out. Let me see if there's another tool I can use. I purchased another tool. Even that was giving me a hard time, So I guess the point is I started going through this process, and it was a process of exploration instead of a process of I need to get this done.
Yes.
It's like I'm just going on this journey trying to get this done. There's these different challenges that are being thrown in my way, but I'm going to take it step by step.
There you go.
And so I tried my best to get it off. It wasn't working. I tried another tool. It wasn't working. Like I told you, eventually I went back to the shop and said, hey, you guys put these tires on too tight. Can you loosen it up for me? Loosened it up for me. I was able to get it off. Everything was all good. But I guess the point is, it took me a few days and it took me a process to actually get to the point where I actually could change my brakes. And to be honest, changing the brakes was the easiest part. But I guess the point is, I never got down on myself. I never got frustrated. I just opened myself up to, I'm just learning.
Yes.
I'm literally just learning.
I'm in the process. And we do better when we trust the process. In our society, we are so outcome focused that we get frustrated if we can't get that outcome. But where life really happens is in the process, in the journey. So it says, let me enjoy the journey. Let me be present in the journey. Let me be open to the journey. And when I'm doing that, I'll even have better outcomes. But it's not to focus on the outcome. It's to be present in the journey.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're going to go through this life, might as well enjoy it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So, we've covered a few things, but this issue of surrender is, I think, very important. And nobody else can tell you what that means for you, but it requires that we go inside, get as much guidance, clarity as we can from the universe, so that we can do our own experiments to see what is working for us and what will help us to manifest our highest good. Not the ones that are advertised as you need this and you need that on television, but the real needs that come from being in alignment with this eternal journey that we're on in this universe, that we are beings that have much potential to manifest. And when we are inside of ourselves in an authentic way, in alignment and in harmony with the universe, we do a better job of taking care of ourselves and everything else. So your assignment is do some experiments. Do some experiments with being still, with it's shifting from your desires to focusing on your needs. Do some experiments, whether it's with being still. Do some experiments based on your assessment of what you need and what you think is best from you, and see what comes out of it. See what comes out of it. Keep some notes so you can see what works for you and what might be next for you. Take care of you. Blessings to you all. and we'll talk again soon. Peace and blessings.